during the war of aggression of Russia against Ukraine. I want to bring also to the point that, of course, women and girls, women with children are the most vulnerable groups during conflicts, during wars. But also we cannot undermine that women also have leadership in many positions. Right now there are 5,000 of women soldiers up front fighting for our independence, fighting for our state, and fighting for the possibility to be Ukrainian in independent state. And some of you mentioned about the women should be at the table during the peace negotiations. Well, guess what? Russia doesn't want peace. So right now, these women that are on the front are our best negotiation team, because that's how you deal with aggressor. You need to put the aggressor to the place and to restore international order and international peace. It's not a regional conflict. It's about democracy and tyranny. But also women are, leaders in NGO sector. They are, leaders in political sphere. Right now in Ukrainian parliament, we have the highest number of women elected since 1991, since the actually gaining the independence. It's around 21%. It's still not enough because we have 50% of women voting, so they need to be represented equally, but still it's the highest number. I'm 37 years old. I was elected when I was 34. There are a lot of young women politicians that came into parliament and they do a lot of reforms right now. And I'm co-author of the media law, which is still one of the 7 steps needed to be taken to access to European Union to start the negotiation process. But also Ukraine, probably the only country in the world during the full-scale invasion, was able to ratify Istanbul Convention. We did it in June last year. So I don't see any excuses from other countries or organizations that say, oh, we cannot ratify Istanbul Convention. Ukraine was able to do it when the bombs were, literally flying around. And still, flying around, and missiles flying around. Also, some of you mentioned about the 1325 United Nations Security Council resolution. Well, Ukraine also was one of the probably only country in the world that actually adjusted the National Action Plan during the conflict, during the full-scale invasion. We just presented it during the sitting of the Commission on Status of Women in New York. Earlier this March, I was part of official Ukrainian delegation. But when we say about the bigger picture, we also have to be, very frank. We're talking about 1325 UN Security Council resolution. Well, guess what? In April 1st, Russia will starts chairing in United Nations Security Council. Isn't that strange? Doesn't that strange to you when the perpetrators will be chairing in this council, which is about security? Well, Russia is the biggest threat to security in the world right now, and we have to speak about it and say it's not normal. Of course, sometimes you probably heard that people, well, during the wars, the rape is a regular thing, it's a collateral damage, it always happens during the wars. No, well, guess what? It is element of warfare. And we see this pattern clearly, how Russian soldiers, they raped not only women, they raped men, they raped children in front of parents, they raped mothers in front of kids. So it was made intentionally to break the resilience, and so people would not fight. And actually, it's supported by Pramila Pattern, the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence and Conflict, who said the following, that when you hear women testify about Russian soldiers equipped with viagra, it's clearly a military strategy. So that was made and still being made because we have a lot of territories still occupied by Russians, and some of the territories were occupied and now still occupied for 9 years. It hasn't started in 2022 on the 24th of February. It started with the annexation of Crimea and the war in Donetsk and Luhansk region. And we have to remember about that the women being raped and being victims since 2014. And the justice has to go for all the perpetrators that were doing it since the 2014. According to the Independent International Commission of Inquiry in Ukraine, the victims of sexual assault by Russian soldiers ranged, just think about it, from 4 years to over 80 years old. Of course, you know how underrepresented these war crimes are, and in these cases we have the documented 171 cases of conflict-related sexual violence, but of course the numbers are much higher, especially because you know that there are around 7 to 8 million of people who were, you know, they had to leave Ukraine. It's mostly women with kids. So among them, probably there are a lot of victims of such violence. So that's why it is really important to ensure that they have the needed help on the territories of the countries who host them. And of course, this online platform is also very useful for those who are not in Ukraine. I do not agree with what our previous speaker said, that the system, how you said, the system collapsed. Well, everything collapses when Russians occupy the territory. That's where everything collapses. But on the territory that is controlled by Ukrainian government, of course, we have the fully operational government, parliament, we have fully operational all the services. And once we liberate the territory, for example, when we liberated the Kiev region, Kharkiv region, Kherson, part of the Kherson region, we form a special squad of police officers. There are always women among them who used to work with the domestic violence before, so they have the needed competence to talk to possible survivors of sexual violence. So yes, the number is obviously much higher, but you know, people, yeah, they don't want to be stigmatized and everything. To inform, as Honorable MEP Fitzgerald said, that I'm working in the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe as the head of one of the committees, the Cultural Committee, but also I work in the Equality Committee. And our committee and Austrian Member of Parliament Petra Bayer made a resolution and report on sexual violence during conflicts, and she had some testimonies put into the report. I would like to read them. It's very hard to read. It would be really hard for you to hear, but you need to hear this because what Russians are doing is clearly genocide. Svetlana swallows her tears, clears her voice, and continues. Suddenly, her story is no longer about herself, but about a friend. She tells how that friend in the basement in Mariupol was raped by the Russian soldier, while the other soldier held her son and forced him to watch. Svetlana also says that the soldiers then turned to rape another woman in the air raid shelter, and that her friend saw the Russian soldier push a gun into the woman's vagina and fire after rape. He said he wanted to make sure she would never give birth to new Ukrainians again. And another testimony. Maria wiped her tears and tells how one Russian soldier commanded his younger colleagues. He told them to rape the woman in the basement again and then again and again, until they were completely mentally destroyed. It's not about a pull-out by one Russian soldier on the loose, but about clear orders from the Kremlin, even though they vehemently deny it there. So, of course, to conclude, because actually I had a huge part of my notes about to tell about these centers, but already the representative of the United Nations already told about these centers, and I truly believe that this is a good and right way to approach, because you cannot just write with big, huge letters on the building saying, well, all the victims of sexual violence are welcomed here. No, because they will not go. You need to come to maybe at first get the judicially aid, and then psychological, and then on the third visit they might speak about what happened. So I thank for this bringing perpetrators to justice. Not just those soldiers who did the rape, but also the military command and political leadership of Russia. Because if one country had not decided to invade another independent country, state, we would not have these 70,000 war crimes that are already documented in Ukraine. So we really have to push forward about the establishing international ad hoc tribunal for Putin and his friends. Because that's the link in the chain we're missing, because the crime of aggression cannot be judged by and put into the International Criminal Court. We really welcome the decision of the ICC about the arrest warrant for Putin and for so-called ombudsman on children, for the abduction of Ukrainian children, but also we need this international tribunal, as we had Nuremberg tribunal after the Second World War, to make sure that justice will be just, and the peace will be just. And of course, at the last, but not the least, but probably it's the most important, when we say that there are some women that are being raped right now in the occupied territories, well, that's true. And the only way to help them is to help Ukraine to liberate these territories, and to give help to these women and girls, and to make sure that they have a normal future in normal European country that will be, I really believe, a member of European Union.